This session is focused on core stability, and we'll be working through a series of exercises to help us increase our strength in particular areas of the core. Great, okay, so we're going to start off on all fours to begin with. We're going to make sure we've got our hands planted underneath our shoulders and our knees underneath our hips. The tops of our feet are going to be pressed into the mat. We're just going to gently warm up briefly. We're going to push back onto our heels, keeping that core nice and tight, and then we're slowly going to transfer our weight forwards over our wrists for 3, for 2, for 1. Good. So from here, again, finding that nice position. What I'm going to do here is I'm actively pushing away from the mat. I'm not sinking my torso through those arms. So my shoulder blades are really trying to separate themselves. So they're they're parting. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze my pelvic floor, and then I'm slowly keeping my hand in position. So I'm not moving it inwards. I'm going to try and adjust my weight internally. So on my knees, and raise my right hand off the floor for 3. Keeping that core nice and tight for 3, for 2, for 1. Taking my right hand behind my back, lifting up my torso towards the side of the room for 3, for 2, for 1. Keep breathing, slowly taking that right hand down. So it is a bit easier if you place your hands in the middle of the mat, but I'm keeping them nice and shoulder width apart depending on how you're feeling. So again, transferring your weight over to the right hand side of your body, so through both knees, but your right hand, and then lifting that left hand up towards in front of you, really pointing those fingers, engaging the arm, trying to keep your torso square towards the mat for 3, for 2, for 1. Taking that left hand behind your back, lifting the elbow, and twisting your torso around towards the left hand side of the room for 3, for 2, for 1. Slowly lowering down with control. We're going to go for the legs now. So we're going to lift our right leg first. Again, just try and maintain that balance. Squeeze that pelvic floor. Keep those hips, that chest square towards the mat, actively pushing away from the floor. Really pointing those toes for 3, for 2, for 1. If you can, lift up, arch that back slightly for 2, for 1, and then slowly bring your right knee in to where your right elbow is, keeping that nice core strength, then dropping down towards the mat. Maybe just taking a little time to adjust and then switching over sides. So when you're ready, lifting that left foot up, trying to square your hips off, your shoulders off, your torso off, keeping that torso nice and engaged. Pelvic floor squeeze for 2, for 1. Lifting up if you can for 3, for 2, for 1. Slowly bringing the left knee towards the left elbow, keeping that control. And then dropping that left knee down towards the mat. Giving your arms a little bit of a break here, pushing back onto your heels, stretching out that back, and then slowly coming back up into all fours. This time around, we're going to lift one leg and one arm. So we're going to lift our right hand, left leg. When you're ready, 3, 2, 1, lift up. Try and again, keep that torso square towards the mat. Really work on pushing out that lower spine. So you're not going into overextension here. You're keeping a nice core, strong core. Really stretching out for 3, for 2, for 1. Lifting both up. Now allowing your spine to extend. If that's comfortable for you, if you've got a sore lower back, avoid this position for 2, for 1. Slowly bring your knee in towards your elbow in towards your knee with control. Pushing them back out again, nice long line. And then bring your left knee to your left elbow, your right elbow towards your left knee. Just requires a tiny little bit more coordination. Pushing back out again. Good. From here, we're going to take our right arm wide and our left leg wide. Dropping towards the mat and pushing back for 3, for 2, for 1. Good. From here, we're going to place our right hand back underneath our shoulders. And what we're going to do is we're going to sweep that left leg up and then all the way around. Flicking our right foot out, lifting up into a side variation of a side plank. Really working on his hip area, keeping that left hand nice and strong for 3, for 2, for 1. Planting that left hand down, rotating those hips towards the floor, and then taking that right leg behind the left leg, tucking those toes and pushing back for 3, for 2, for 1. Good. Bring our knee back towards the floor, coming into that nice 4-point position, tabletop position, and switching over side. So lifting the left hand to right foot, nice and long now, really trying to avoid that lower spine over curving for 3, for 2, for 1, and lifting up if that's comfortable for 3, for 2, for 1. Slowly bring the knee in towards the elbow, underneath the body, with control, pushing back out again, nice and slowly. And then bring your left elbow to your left knee, your right knee towards your left elbow. Good, nice and controlled. Pushing out again, taking your left arm wide, your right leg wide, dropping down, dropping your hand down, pushing back for 3, for 2, for 1. Bring your left hand back to center, lifting up that right leg, sweeping all the way through, flicking out that left leg, transferring your weight, opening up into a variation of side plank for 3, lifting up that right leg for 2, for 1, planting that right hand onto the mat, twisting your hips down towards the mat and taking that right foot over the top of the left foot, tucking those right toes, pushing back for 3, for 2, for 1, slowly lifting up, coming back into a nice tabletop. Pushing back onto your heels, just briefly tucking those toes, and then coming up into a nice crab position. So your knees are just slightly off the ground for 3, for 2, for 1. Good. Slowly lowering those knees, untucking those toes, and coming onto your back. So lowering onto your back, bring your feet in towards your bottom and your knees should be hip width apart. Really placing those feet firmly on the ground because we're going to be pushing through those. What we're going to firstly do is a pelvic tilt. So we're going to really push our lower back fully into the ground. That might feel a little bit uncomfortable. We've all got a bit of a natural curve somewhere along our spine. What I want you to do is really work from your tailbone and try and curl it up towards the ceiling and then come to about mid-spine. So I'm going to use my hands either side of my body, and it's going to be quite a subtle movement from you, what you can see on the camera. So I'm going to squeeze my pelvic floor. I'm going to engage my feet, push my weight through my feet, lift up my tailbone, slowly, slowly, slowly. Really imagine I'm bringing my ribs towards the front of my pelvis, squeezing up for 3, for 2, for 1. When I come back down, I'm going to lower down from my mid-spine all the way down nice and slowly, eventually to my tailbone. And then I'm just going to allow that natural curve to come in on my spine. I've got a little bit of a gap on the bottom of the mat. So I'm going to do that 2 more times. So I'm going to push out that curve, squeeze my pelvic floor, slowly roll my hips up towards the ceiling, peeling off my vertebrae one at a time. 2, 1, not allowing those knees to come in, so really engaging that area, slowly lowering down, allowing a natural curve in my spine. 1 more time, squeezing that pelvic floor, flattening your back. Keep breathing here. Keep that bottom half of your body nicely engaged. Good. From here, we're just going to take your knees or your feet wider than the mat apart. If you don't have a mat, just take your legs quite wide or your feet quite wide. You're just going to drop both your knees towards the right-hand side of the room. Just briefly, we're not going to hang out here. And then towards the left-hand side of the room, they might be referred to as windscreen wipers or something similar from if you've done them before. Bring your feet back into that nice position. So your feet quite close to your bottom. I like to try and touch my ankles, but it really depends on the length of your limbs as to whether that's comfortable or feasible for you. So keeping your feet hip width apart, your knees going directly up towards the ceiling. We don't want them out or we don't want them in. And then slowly I'm going to come into a bridge position. So I'm going to use my hands either side of my body. I'm going to do the same thing as what I did with the pelvic tilt. I'm going to keep driving my hips up towards the ceiling, really engaging that pelvic floor for 3, for 2, for 1. Slowly going to lower down, vertebrae by vertebrae, nice and slowly. And then I'm going to heel toe my feet in together. So I'm going to use my feet and my knees. I'm going to squeeze my knees together as well. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to tilt my pelvis, do my pelvis tilts, coming up into my nice bridge position, lifting up my hips. And I'm either going to stay here, really holding this position. I'm slowly going to weight bear through my left leg and lift my right leg off the floor for 3, for 2, for 1. Slowly bending that right leg, lifting up that left leg. For 3, lifting up those hips. For 2, for 1, dropping down. We're going to do it again on each side, staying up in this position, or just holding it. If you need to come out of it, come out of it. For 3, for 2, for 1, slowly lowering down. Other side, last time. Really engaging that core, squeezing up the floor for 2, for 1, dropping that foot down, lowering down vertebrae by vertebrae. So don't just collapse. Control this movement all the way down towards the mat. Take those legs mat width apart. And again, just cycle through a couple of these windmills, just loosening off the lower back if that's been working pretty hard. From here, I'm just going to take my feet out in front of me and I'm going to bring my hands either side of my body and I'm going to somehow get onto my elbows here, bringing my elbows in nice and close to the body, shuffle myself up. And then slowly, if I can, I'm going to lift up my hips, driving them up towards the ceiling for 3, for 2, for 1, slowly lowering down and then coming up to a nice seated position. Rolling over onto my front for the last set of positions. So coming into your variation of plank, you might be in a plank with your knees on the floor, dropping your hips. Try and avoid coming into this overextension in the spine. We want to keep a nice strong position, so actively pushing away from the mat. And if you can see yourself a nice long line from your shoulders, your hips, your knees. If you're coming into a full plank, tuck those toes, again, push away from the floor. Notice my hips aren't dipping towards the floor. I'm actively pushing away from the mat. I'm going to hold this for 3, for 2, for 1. Good. From here, I'm going to slowly lower myself down into a half plank. If you're on your knees, you can do this as well. For 3, for 2, for 1. Slowly lowering your torso all the way down to the mat here. Untucking your toes. Bring your hands out in front of you, your elbows nice and close and coming into Sphinx. Just briefly for 3, for 2, for 1. Good. Last little exercise, tucking those toes, pushing back into all fours. Bring your hips, your knees relatively close together, so they're going to be tighter than if you were normally in all fours. And then what we're going to do is we're going to flatten our right foot, so draw our toes towards our shins, keeping our chin fairly tucked into our chest, so nice long spine here. And I'm going to slowly, keeping my back nice and fixed, push up into a variation of a donkey kick, keeping my hips nice and level, trying to avoid, again, overextension in my lower spine for 3, for 2, for 1. I'm just going to twist my foot towards the right-hand side of the room or left-hand side of the room, bring it up, and then twist it out. Good. Coming back to center, slowly lowering down, switching sides, flattening the left toes or left foot, lifting up, watching that extension in my lower spine, trying to keep my hips and my shoulders square to the mat for 3, for 2, for 1. Dropping your foot down towards the right hand side of the room, feeling that in your hip and your glute. Bring it back up to center, and then dropping it the other side for 3, for 2, for 1, back up to center. Slowly lower down. Take your knees nice and wide. Push your bottom back, coming into child's pose. Dropping your head towards the mat, relaxing those shoulders, moving your hips from side to side for 3, for 2, for 1. Good. Steady. Coming up into a nice seated position. I hope you enjoyed that session. It can be quite hard if you've got a sore lower back or if you've got a particular weakness in the core. Just modify those positions as I gave you cues to do it. There's no winning if we've got a massive sort of extension in our lumbar. It just might hurt us. So work within your own sort of sphere. And I look forward to seeing you on my next session. Thank you so much. Bye.